If not now, then when? Today on Hard Copy, Rich History, Bethel Baptist Church. They can tell it all. They know all the stuff. We're going to talk with them today. Later in the second hour, the government has crossed the line, says the Christian Council's president. Crossed the line they have.
It's summer, and Commonwealth Bank wants to know, are you set? Get set for all your summer expenses with a personal loan from Commonwealth Bank. Get cash for summer travel, back to school, whatever you need, with fast approval and great service. Plus, there are weekly cash prizes and a grand prize of $5,000. Get a MasterCard, too, for everyday expenses. So, get set, get ready, and get over to Commonwealth Bank today.
I was thinking that maybe asking Diagala for all of their machine was probably a little too much, eh?
Well, I thought so.
Yeah, but you was gonna be right there present early if he'd say, yeah, eh? Well, anyhow, what you think about this? Having control of the TV remote.
Did you say ask him for control of the TV remote?
I did. You stay right there with your home. You can be the same one making noise for them people watching HGTV when Days of Our Life reruns on Channel 9000.
That's true.
Just think, if we have control of the remote, we could watch anything we want to watch. And if we have reserved seating, we could watch it in comfort.
Reserve seating?
That's something else I want to ask him about.
You can't reserve no seat in them Superwash.
Well, I was thinking about them seats. I was thinking about lazy boys.
Now you're talking, because if we is the Superwash queens, we need to be on our throne.
Now, hold on. I don't think nobody in Superwash wants to see you on your throne.
Superwash, they wash your presses and cleans you 24/7.
I just don't believe it.
What's the matter?
I went to put money on my fixed deposit at my bank, and they ain't even offering me half a 1% interest. Now, they got to be joking.
Why don't you try BOB? BOB gives you higher interest on a range of savings and deposits, including short, medium, and long-term investments.
Now, that sounds like my kind of bank.
That's why BOB is my bank.
Earn higher interest on a range of savings and fixed deposits at BOB, your bank of solutions. Some restrictions apply.
And now, here's a message from Bishop Neil C. Ellis.
When John says to prosper in all things, he meant things like in your safety and protection, in your health and healing, in your relationships, your marriage, your family, your casual relationship, your business relationship. All of these things ought to be healthy, because relationships, for the most part, is what's sending a lot of people crazy. A lot of people today have lost their minds because they are in an unhealthy relationship. A lot of people are floating because they can't get peace at home. They can't find peace to work. They can't find peace among their siblings. That is not the will of God for your life.
Good afternoon, Hard Copy.
Hey, Steve, what's up? Steve's my man.
Hi, Steve. How are you doing today?
Hey, Steve McGinney.
Hi, Steve. How are you today?
All is well, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Hi, Steve. How you doing?
Hi, Steve. Hi, Steve. I am calling to thank you so much.
I respect to you, Mr. McKinney. How are you?
I was just calling on a point that you made. I think you're so correct.
Thank you so much. It is Wednesday, the 26th day of the month of July, 2017, as you battle the congested city streets and drive home traffic. We have a mix of sun and cloud this afternoon, 90 degrees on the outside right now in the nation's capital, 88 for the overnight low, and there's a 20% chance of rain in the forecast. Thank you so much for joining us on the drive home. I'm Steve McKinney. This is Hard Copy. We're brought to you today by the Beauty Shack. Weekend 10 sale this weekend on Soldier Road. Galena Financial Advisors Limited, CFAL. They're the ones who take care of your pension. Bank of the Bahamas, the Bank of Solutions. The Show Bistro on Nassau Street, offering the best in boiled fish and stewed fish and the rest of it. Mount Tabor's Inspiration. Super Value, the All Bahamian Supermarkets. Rocky Farms Nursery on Seabreeze Lane. Water and Sewage Corporation. Ministry of Tourism, travel the islands this summer, will you? Echo Water, the official water of Hard Copy. Commonwealth Bank, the new debit card available to you right now for travel. Cool Tech, the Ekandu experts on Tonique Williams, Darling Highway, Bahamian Brewery and Beverages. Super Wash open 24/7. Advantage Insurance and Brokers, 61 Collins Avenue. Ron's Electric Motors on Claridge and Wolf Road. Executive Printers on Jerome Avenue. McKinney Media Group Limited for advertisement and public relations and consultation. And also Bethel Baptist Church, celebrating 227 years anniversary in the Bahamas. And we'll be talking about that for the most part today here on Hard Copy. You can call us at 325-0235 You can also WhatsApp in Texas today at 376-9234. You can follow us on the World Wide Web at peace1075.com. Hard Copy YouTube channel, cable top box 970. Plus, you can get us on BTC Flow on the Go at 613. And on TuneIn Radio around the country, around the world. TuneIn Radio, any iPad, iPhone, and any Android, you'll get us there. Or you can go and hook up on the new app on Radio Air. They'll have Peace there as well. And you can hear us around the world. You can follow us on Facebook, Hard Copy, and on Twitter, Hard Copy Bahamas. Today, my friends, I want to turn the pages and talk about some things that are very important as far as history of this country is concerned. And today I've got people in from Bethel Baptist Church, the Mother Church. You hear us say that all the time, the Mother Church on Meeting Street. This is the first meeting house. And there's a whole lot of stuff that we want to cover today in this first hour, because we've got some other things from the church business to talk about in the second hour that deals with finances, not Bethel Baptist churches, but of course, the Christian Council is making some kind of point of information. They're standing up and saying about what the government is now trying to do and crossing the line, they say, about these things that are being asked for by the Registrar General. And we talked about it early in the week with Paul Marsh, remember that? And we raised it. And now some people are responding quietly to it. But for the most part, I want to talk today about Bethel Baptist Church. There were names like Prince William and Sambo. Now, you've heard stories about Sambo. I don't know if it's the same Sambo that you've heard stories about. They talk about Sambo, you know, this kind of like caricature that people used to talk about. Sambo, say this, Sam. Well, anyway, there was a man by the name of Sambo who did a whole lot in the organization in the beginning of this Bethel Baptist Church. 227 years ago. It's the oldest, most continuous Baptist church in the region and in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And that means, friends, that they have been there from the beginning. That's what it means. And it means that everyone who passed through the doors, even into the parliaments, would have come through the doors of Bethel Baptist Church, because it has always been the historic mother church in the Bahamas. And they lead by example. They still have a dynamic Reverend man of God there at the pulpit these days, Reverend Dr. Timothy Stewart. And of course, he follows a whole long line of adventurous and dynamic and iconic reverends and preachers, people like Johnson, who was there just before him, and before that, the late H.W. Brown, Son of Man, Can These Bones Live? And you see, this is a very steadying power. That's why I want to talk about it today and help you to understand that this is more than just an anniversary. This is a celebration of a country, because the Bahamas is really synonymous with Bethel Baptist Church. Understand what I'm saying now. Of course, we are just 44 years old. Bethel Baptist has been around for 227 years, continuously. This is something that we should applaud and something that we should take our hat and tip our hats to, because, you know, they always say that we can't do nothing and you put us to do something. You know what I'm saying, right? When I say we, okay. And it will fall apart. Not so. Not so at all. Bethel Baptist Church has stood the test of time, and there's so much to tell and so much to talk about. And I hope to get into the heads of people like Ishmael Lightburn, who's supposed to be here today, and the Reverend DeWitt Hutchison, and Howard Miller, Brother Howard Miller, and some others. Of course, Reverend Dr. Timothy Stewart is on the live line with me this afternoon. We're at Exuma, at this particular time, and he's going to call in on the live line, because we want to get you to understand that this is not just a family reunion kind of thing. This is a gathering of people who know that the Bahamas has always been their home, and that this particular church played a pivotal role in the great majority rule and the great independence and everything that you can consider great in this country. There was Reverend H.W. Brown at one point, Reverend Johnson at one point, Timothy Stewart at another point, and countless others who have not been to the forefront, but of course, a part of a systematic approach to good governance in our country and to stability in our country. And so we're going to be talking with them today. In fact, I do have on the live lines at this particular time my good friend, Reverend Dr. Timothy Stewart, who is down in Exuma right now, just meditating and getting things all set. And we welcome him to Hard Copy this afternoon. Sir, how are you?
I'm doing well, my friend and brother, and good afternoon to Reverend Hutch and Miller, and also to Brother.
Well, they're in the waiting room. They're going to be in just a minute once I take the break. But I want to engage you for a second as I have you on the live line. This is big because people may perhaps look at this as just another celebration, just an anniversary. But this is 227 years, and this is a church and an edifice and a community and a group that have been weathering the storm on every national occasion and every historic occasion in this country. So this is just no little fluky thing. This is big, and I want to bring it off that way, as we need to have people come to the focus of the magnificence of this particular historic church, Bethel Baptist Church. Pastor Stewart.
Well, my brother, you are definitely on course. Look at it in this way, Brother McKinney, and to the wider public. The only institution that we have in the Bahamas and in the Caribbean that is of a Black origin is the Bethel Baptist Church, the oldest one.
Absolutely.
I know of no other institution in the country that's headed, that started, that are originated with Black Bahamians.
Yes.
That's 227 years
Absolutely.
old.
My point exactly.
So just for unity to give 227 years of service and ministry and leadership,
yes, sir,
to the Bahamian people is magnanimous.
No question.
Because if you think about providing leadership that long, you have to remember also that there was a large spectrum of time when Black people in the Bahamian context only had Black leadership.
That's right.
And that leadership only came primarily from the church.
Indeed.
And the home.
Indeed. And so
Bethel would have been the first in that regard. The very first. As a matter of fact, it was 1790 when we began, and other Baptist churches did not even exist, didn't even come into existence until about 1834, 1835.
Yes.
So, that's almost, close to 40
plus years. Yeah.
40 years.
Yes, before anybody else came. Yes. So this is significant, as one who would every now and then go over to Bethel Baptist, my Baptist flavor. I get excited about it because I know how important it is that the history of this church is so very vitally important to the growth and development of the Bahamas and Bahamian people who would know. They pass that church all the time. It's almost as if, they're just passing a place. And they don't know that has been there all of this time. There was never any other location. This has always been there on the hill. The meeting house.
Most Bahamians at this stage in our Bahamian context don't have the slightest of idea of the impact, the magnitude of the impact of the contribution of Bethel Baptist Church and its leadership and leaders who've come out of Bethel, the people, the Bahamian leadership, the Bahamian population who were trained and developed and who went out to serve in all areas of sectors of our nation and around the world, and they don't have a clue.
Yes, so many people have come out of Bethel, and of course, we remember and talk about individuals like the most dynamic man who was there for the most part of his pastoral career, H.W. Brown. And of course, we know the many things his time with the majority rule. And
you know something, that period is a very interesting period. And I'm sure that once the other guests come in.
Oh, they're here now. Brother Ishmael is here, and Ada Witt Hutchinson is here, and of course, my good friend
to continue it.
Howard Miller is here.
Let me give the significance of Dr. Brown's contribution as I see it. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. We're listening.
Right. Brother McKinney, remember now that from 1790 to 1838, we were still fighting slavery.
Yes.
All right? So over all that time, Bethel was in existence.
My.
Helping to provide refuge for a whole lot of slaves, because we were considered basically part of the Underground Railroad.
Ah, these are the connections. Right? That's right.
Coming from the United States to the Bahamas.
Yes.
People who were basically, once you were in the area of Bethel Baptist Church, you were considered off limits from being captured.
Understood. This is where the Red Pass comes in, right? The Red Pass, and this is where I remember some of the history about Sambo, and of course,
Sambo Scriven. They used to, Sambo Scriven. They used to ask for him.
Yes.
He was one of the persons that they would ask for. Sambo Scriven.
Yes.
And that's how they would know this person. Yes.
I see.
Was part of that system. So you had that period where from 1790 to 1838 we were dealing with slavery and seeking to provide leadership in the midst of very difficult and adverse circumstances. Then from 1839 or 1840 to about, I would say, the 1950s, around the 1950s, when Dr. Brown came in 1939 or thereabouts, was when Dr. Brown, I think, came. Then we had the church in the Bahamas entering, so to speak, impacting the political arena of the country. You see what I'm saying? Because now Dr. Brown, remember now that in the 1950s, Dr. Brown in the 1930s, he is now graduated from the American Baptist Theological Seminary in 1939. And remember now that the south of the United States of America and where he was training was the bedrock of the civil rights movement.
That's correct. Yep.
So much so that in 1956, it was Dr. Brown who who wrote the letter to invite Dr. Martin Luther King to the Bahamas when he came to be part of what the PLP wanted him to do.
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying?
Rich history, rich past.
So the point is, so that's when the church actually began then to have political influence. That was done through H.W. Brown individually, literally.
Yeah.
Okay? and he basically helped to lead the fight with in terms of Milo Butler, in terms of the women's suffrage movement, in terms of
all of it. They can tell it all. Bethel Baptists can tell it all because they've been there.
With Sir Lyndon, right? Getting with Sir Lyndon, etc., and Brown. That's when Bethel and Brown became very much now involved in the political change and transformation of the country.
So we are looking at a rich legacy, very, very rich. And of course, I just wanted to draw those things to the public's attention because this is no ordinary celebration. It's 227 years. That says a mouthful right there. That is a mouthful because of all the vast span of the time that it all now includes. And certainly many things have happened in our country. We've seen our country from a fishing village to where we are today because of a standing, steady, firm foundation that was ushered in by Bethel Baptist Church. Let me just introduce today that we've got Brother Ishmael Lightman with us today. And you want to say good afternoon, Pastor?
Good afternoon, Pastor. Good afternoon, Bahamian audience. It's good to be here with you all today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And of course, A. DeWitt Hutchinson, Reverend Doctor. Is he? Yeah, soon to be. Ram, how you doing, man?
Good afternoon, Steve. Good afternoon, Pastor Stewart, and to the wider community.
Absolutely. And of course, Brother Howard Miller is there with us as well today. And he's the man who, in fact, gets everything done. I see, boy, Pastor, I see the church looking so spiffy. When I saw it, I get scared. I say, but what, the Queen coming, eh? I say, what's good? That's Howard Miller and them. They got all them flags up. It looks so good. It looked like a time of celebration. Howard, how are you today?
Very well, Brother Steve. Good afternoon, and good afternoon, Pastor. And
God bless you.
Everyone elsewhere in the Bahamas, good afternoon.
Yes. Well, you know, Pastor, I wanted to get into the conversation here and just find out from your group that I hear here on New Providence about the expectation and the time of celebration, the things that are planned, and the rest of it. And of course, I also want to find out some more history and get into some of the actual historical references that you referred to earlier about certain periods. And I know that Brother Ish is one who is perhaps well versed in that area. So you can stay right there on the live line as we continue to have a conversation, and you can pop in whenever you want to and join us in the conversation.
That's fine. I'm sure that both Brother Ish and the others, they will make a rich contribution this afternoon.
No question. And of course, the first thing I want to find out, gentlemen, today is the fact that we are celebrating 227 years anniversary in the Bahamas. Do you find that people are understanding the significance of this whole time? I mean, this is coming at a time when we are just 44 years old as an independent nation, and sometimes people just meander about and don't understand the significance of a lot of things and make the connections as to how we are where we are today. And we know that we're here in a big way, because, politically speaking, especially because of the efforts of a Bethel Baptist Church from way back then. Let's talk about that for a second, Ish.
It's important that you underline that context, that we've just celebrated 44 years of independence.
Yes.
And you put that in the context of 227 years of existence.
That's right.
And you immediately begin to think of all of the many, many social, economic, developmental changes which have occurred over that vast period of time.
Yes.
There's one particular thing I would want to emphasize,
yes,
that for the last almost 80 years of Bethel Baptist existence, we've had two pastors.
Yes, that is significant.
That is very significant in terms of the solidifying of a particular view and a particular agenda and portfolio. And indeed, it's interesting, Dr. Brown came here at the commencement of the Second World War, 1939. And we're now in 2017, some 77 years later. Two pastors, basically, except bridging that period was Dr. Wellington Johnson.
I couldn't remember his first name. And Wellington Johnson.
Yes.
That's correct.
Bridging that period.
Yeah.
So we've benefited as a church from having two very solid, gifted, insightful leadership and very strong leadership.
Yeah.
To guide the process of the church. And then one other comment is this. We're not institutionalized in the sense that we are the Anglican Church with a whole hierarchy.
Understood.
For an independent body such as Bethel Baptist Church, an individual church.
You did good. Boy,
you did good.
Boy, you did good.
You did good to still stay standing and still be sober and sane.
Exactly.
Without too much division and multiplication. Well, a lot of multiplication, but not much in the way of division.
Yeah.
So we are looking forward to this 227th anniversary time of great celebration. And again, to celebrate it again with our illustrious pastor, Timothy Stewart, who's been leading us for the last almost 36 years. We are going to have a great time.
Now, listen, what is interesting here, you mentioned that the significant thing is that you had two pastors in the last almost 70 years thereabouts, right?
Almost 80.
And almost 80. And I remember that you had that point where there was Wellington Johnson for a short bit in there. Then Pastor Timothy Stewart, who was in school, came home at a very young and tender age to take over. Now, Howard, I know that you would have been around then and you perhaps had a whole lot to do with it. So I want to ask you for a quick second about that whole thing, because, you know, to jump from a man who was sturdy and we knew who he was, very popular, and then you get this new, young, dynamic fella who was just really with milk around his mouth, so to speak, some of the church members would have said, coming and mounting that pulpit and carrying on as if, you know, he was always there. How was this? You've been around the church for a long time, so how was this in that transitional period?
Well, yes, and you know, surprisingly, Brother Ish didn't sell himself. But Ish was the stabilizing factor in between that bridge.
Is that right?
Between Dr. Brown and Reverend Timothy Stewart. Brother Ish was the moderator.
Wow.
So he, in fact, kept the church
together,
steady and together until the arrival of Pastor Stewart. And he was able to pass over to Pastor Stewart the legacy of Bethel. From Dr. Brown.
It is rich.
So it's rich. You would know
it's very powerful.
He's not singing his own story.
Yeah.
Well, that's his story.
That's, you see, I noticed that, right? So you see, I put that mic in front of you.
Yeah. You don't blow your own trumpet.
And then, of course, Ada Witt Hutchinson has also been a long-time member and an affiliate and, of course, a reverend in the church. And I know him from the days of the youth pastor right on up. And, of course, he still has muscles. I don't have any anymore. That kind of stuff. And he's been one who's been a very, very gracious and supportive individual to Pastor Timothy Stewart and to the actual congregation of the church. And so you must have a good feeling about the fact that here you are in betwixt and between this rich history with two giants of men who have been there standing the test of time with a church that has been prophesying, that has been ministering, that has been feeding, that has been serving the whole man, as Brother B would say. And that's quite interesting.
You're right, Steve. I believe that Pastor Harcourt Whitfield Brown is perhaps in our living memory the most consequential pastor that we have had. When he passed, I was almost 20. When Pastor Stewart came to Bethel, I was 22.
Wow.
And away in seminary. But we continue to see, building upon the legacy that you just mentioned of feeding the whole man, Pastor Brown's rich legacy of oratory and exposition being built upon by Pastor Stewart, the strong 6-month administrative ministry of Reverend Wellington Johnson, all of which now brings us to a point where in 2017, on the cusp of 227 years as a congregation, we look towards a future with a church that has as its mantra, the church with a rich past, an exciting present, and a glorious future, looking towards ministering to the whole man still.
Yes.
Feeding the body religious and the body physical, taking care of body and soul. And that is what we attempt to do in the spirit of Christ, not to draw attention to ourselves, but I believe as servants celebrating the joy of our salvation in a unique setting where we elevate God and where we extend a hand to all of God's humanity.
So obviously there's going to be a special kind of message this time around. I hope, Pastor Stewart, that there's going to be a lot of emphasis upon the rich history of the church, as well as the fact that you were there in so many different cases. I mean, throughout the different scenes of life, Bahamian life, the church stood the test of time. And I'm hoping that there's going to be something there for everyone. There's a live television audience on the day of celebration.
Well, definitely, Brother McKinney, you know that one aspect of the mission of Bethel was always to be a relevant spokes group to the nation, speaking to the nation forthrightly and intentionally and relevantly about the challenges of the day. And so, you know, that is something that we will continue to be true to as we seek to be directed by God and the Holy Spirit in terms of how do we come to grips with the challenges first that we are confronted by, and secondly, how do we confront them basically with the gospel of Jesus Christ, with the ministry of Jesus Christ, and with the overcoming power of Jesus Christ in order to expand the kingdom of Jesus Christ on earth. And so anytime we have the opportunity to witness to the nation and around the world with regards to sharing that gospel, that liberating gospel that seeks to provide answers and solutions in spite of present day what appear to be insurmountable realities.
Yes.
And we're going once again to seek to have the Holy Spirit lead us in terms of how do we reach our people, because at this stage, Brother McKinney, you know that many people are losing hope. Many people are grappling with many challenges, and we believe that the gospel is still the answer.
Well, I want to thank Bethel Baptist Church and the fine folks in that ministry for the many things that they've done in this particular community and in serving the whole man on the radio programs and the rest of it. You had elders like Bertram and Bristol and so many others, all the mothers of the church who would have been a part of that program. It's been a tremendous job over the many years. And I mean, you continue the legacy of all that we've seen in the past, and we're happy that that's happening. I'm also pleased and impressed that there's this whole big thing about the feeding ministry. Now, a lot of people think that this is a little trite thing that we can just. The feeding ministry has grown monumentally. I would say when I passed Bethel Baptist Church, and I love what has happened. You've taken a place that was a bar room. You've converted it into a place where people are able to get good food and substance every day. And you've been doing this for years upon years. And this is something that people sometimes take for granted. But I noticed that there are so many people who are fed in that particular community, on this particular community, every day, 3 and 4 times a day. I believe that you all even provide snack. I don't want to say that too loud, but I believe that there's always something there. This is tremendous because, you see, when people look at churches, they don't want to see an edifice. They want to see servant leadership. They want to see caring and giving. They want to see fellowship. And I think that Bethel Baptist Church is a great example as to what we can do in this country with servicing the schools and all of that. It's a great example of it. And I'm hoping that these things are emphasized and promoted, because this is what it's really all about. After all, you've said it yourself, and I want to ask Ishmael Lightman, as well as Reverend Hutch and, of course, Brother Howard, about the fact that we are challenged on every side. We have all this high crime. We have all these challenges of people who don't have We have got people who don't have homes. There's a lot of challenge that we do have. And I want to know how you have been able to weather the storm and cope through all of these things over the many years.
One of the things, Steve, Pastor Stewart has taught us and has always been very concerned about is the engagement in the community. In other words, you don't just look at yourselves as four walls ministering to the people inside, but going on the outside. And where we are on the hill, Meeting Street, we overlook a vast range of our community who are in conditions of destitution, social degradation throughout the community, Baintown, and a lot of those areas, Augusta Street, Hospital Lane. You would see some of the very tough needs that our people live through. And our church has been pretty much a beacon. People from all of these communities come into our church, either for counseling, for financial aid, for medical aid, for any kinds of assistance. And we have many of our associate ministers, those who are there constantly, Reverend Hutch, Reverend Pat Bethel, Lisa Bethel, and others, Reverend Howard, who are constantly ministering to people who come with varying degrees of social, economic, and other strident problems that today's life in our Bahamas has brought upon them. And you just need not look any further than just across the hill to see some of the challenges that we face in our communities.
Many challenges. And of course, Reverend Hutchinson, of course, there's been challenges. You've been around to the point where you've done things in youth, where you got fellas to come along in basketball and sporting things. But of course, you've matured tremendously to the point where you're doing so many other things in nurturing young couples and adults, that kind of thing. What are you seeing, and why is it so important that you decided that this is where you're going to be, this is where you're going to make in this vineyard for the Lord?
Steve, I became a staff minister in 1992. So 25 years ago, I bought into a premise that I was going to participate actively in impacting the body of Christ with the rich legacy of Dr. Brown, the dynamic ministry and pastorate of Pastor Stewart, and make a difference and effect change from within. So I saw myself, and I see myself now, engaging persons in all areas of life, because I know how important it is to reach people and to know that people can feel that you care about them. The hurtings that we serve, the hurtings of persons in our church is evident when you can tap into and gain the confidence of people. So we're ministering to people in all areas of life. They want persons to do more than just tell them that if they live right, they're going to
Understood.
And they're going to have a mansion. This,
you got to be with the times.
This gospel of which we preach and of which we teach and live, this social gospel that I speak about of Emerson Fosdick, that Pastor Brown tapped into, that Pastor Stewart taps into, is one that talks about affecting and influencing and helping to change and helping people to get that power to change their life situations, not regarding the spiritual aspects, which is very important, but taking note that people need to feel here and now. Heaven is always a future reality, but the existential here and now is where people live, and that's where they're hurting, and that's where we need to deal with, and that's how we need to minister to people.
Understood. Brother Howard, I know that you can associate, and you understand exactly what he is saying, Reverend Hutchinson, because you've been around so long doing your part and very quietly, but we notice you. We would notice that your hair is now turning black again. You know, we notice you. What I'm saying by that is that you have been there serving in the choir and serving in the usher and serving in the background and serving in the communities, and I mean hammer and nail and chisel and everything that you have been doing, and people respect you for it. I do. And I know that a lot of people have seen you after to the wheel, and this has been significant. I want to ask you, though, how has this been for you? How has this been for you as a person, unassuming and just doing your thing? Just you. And I'm sure that this has been a serious thing for you as far as contemplating what people perceive of what Howard Miller brings to the forefront.
Yes, Brother Steve, I'm on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I've been on the ground a long, long time. From 1962, as a matter of fact, politically, I've been on the ground. My contribution has always been people. What excites me most, particularly in these days and time, is to see how we affect the lives of so many persons in need, like Reverend Hutch indicated. Our church stands for help. That's what we stand for. We can see daily that persons walk into the church just to pray, just to kneel down and whisper a word of prayer and leave. And you know, nowadays it's difficult to even find churches open because they're afraid.
Yes, that's correct.
But we are still serving in that capacity, helping those in need. I help in the area of community, Boys Brigade, and you indicated earlier, beautification. That's where I'm at. And so it's always a delight for me to do my part. And now that my hair is getting black again from gray, I'm now serving in the capacity of senior. I'm the president of the Senior Saints.
Oh, man.
And so, you know, I'm now back again.
I understand.
Reversing my service.
I understand.
And I'm grateful to God for his grace and his mercy towards me.
Well, you've done good. And
let me just underscore, and I'm glad he blew his own trumpet there, because otherwise I would have done so for him. But it demonstrates not only the quantity of leadership, but the quality of leadership. He's been involved throughout his early years, and even now as he reaches what you may call retirement. He's not retiring.
No, he's not retired. He's busy as a bee.
And it is, again, we raise a vote of thanks to Pastor Stewart, because it was his vision to put together the Senior Saints ministry, which is a very active,
very
energetic.
Oh, they got all kinds of things they're doing all the time.
Absolutely. You know, so you have all kinds of outgrowths in terms of this engagement. It's not just the youth. It's not those in social needs, but a far range of persons who are opening the church walls to try and help and assist. So congrats, Brother Howard, for your work.
Well, listen, this has been a whole lot of fun, because you know we have not forgotten the main ingredient today, because we want to take a look at some things that are planned. I know Sunday's going to be a big day. There's a live television broadcast. There is always the melodious sounds of all those choirs that there's just none better when it comes to the Bethel Youth and Praise team and the senior choir. Is my good friend still conducting the senior choir? Flo.
Dr. Flo.
Dr. Flo's still on the go.
The one and only.
My goodness. And so people look forward to this. And so this should be a big celebration this time. You're not looking at the numbers 227. It is just that, you know, it is so good to be alive around this time that the legacy continues. It's a continuation. And so I suppose that you got some big plans. You want to tell me about it?
Well, of course, I mean, musically, I mean, that's where we stand out very, very dramatically in what we do. And persons, like you mentioned, Dr. Flo, I mean, she would have been preparing for a long time for this anniversary. Yes. So you could expect something very special in terms of the Sanctuary Choir's rendition. And then, of course, the praise team, who are well known, not just across the Bahamas, but throughout the world in some respects.
Indeed.
They're going to bring a new emphasis on their work as we go through this process. So the entire church is going to be engaged, but you will see basically in the singing, in the enjoyment of the occasion, that there is a vast sense of celebration and thanksgiving that we're going to be praising God for and thanking him for another year. Spare me another year, Lord.
I tell you, anything else you want to add to that, Brother Hutch?
Well, Brother Steve, we continue to see in opportunities like this where we come live to the nation that the best of the Christian witness is put forward. This is not a package or an infomercial. This is the body of Christ in
Understood.
micro,
Yeah.
praising God, authentically showing the country and the world the possibilities of faith life in Christ. And that's what it's all about. So it's the manifestation of the trumpeting of the sermon from the pulpit and the majestic singings of the choir, the directorial gifts of Dr. Flo Carter Gittins, Aaron Neely and Gino Smith on keyboard and organ. And it is the congregation, it's the dance ministry. It is
Yes, the dance
all
ministry,
it is
yeah.
all of
Liturgical
that.
dances.
That is correct. All of that that makes this worship a celebration, but I use that word godly. It is a celebration of the love and the presence of God in our lives.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to emphasize.
Well, you know, I wanted to do this show today to give it a big boost and push, because Bethel has been good to me. And I think it's been a sterling example. And I love your pastor, Timothy Stewart. I say to him all the time, you know, this is the fella. As long as you see him with his nose clean and he doing his thing, he is a chosen fella. I tell him that all the time when I do see him. And he's on the live line right now, so I know he's hearing me. And I'm saying, Pastor Stewart, that we are looking forward to another dynamic sermon. And I'm happy to see that you are bringing the message this time around. Normally, you would have somebody come in, and there'd be somebody from out of town sometimes and all that. And that's good. But right now we need to hear from Pastor Stewart, because this is where the nation is. We are a nation in crisis at a crossroad, and there's so many different things that you've got to be talking about. We can expect to be hearing a whole lot of stuff this time around. Hey, Pastor Stewart?
Well, we give God thanks. As the others have said, I think this would be a very opportune time for me to really thank the membership of Bethel. And I think that persons like Brother Ishmael and also Brother Howard, they would even be able to do a more profound job than I could ever do. Because it was basically the congregation of Bethel and the leadership of the congregation of Bethel that have helped to basically provide the impetus for the leadership of Bethel for these many years. Whether we're talking about from prior pre-slavery, whether we're talking about post-slavery, whether we're talking about Dr. Brown's tenure and his period, whether we're talking about Dr. Reverend Wellington Johnson's period, whether we're talking about my period. We are talking, Brother McKinney and the Bahamas, about a throne, a nation of able leaders, powerful individuals in their own right, trained individuals in their own right, who've undergirded and who have helped to provide the kind of contributions and support and the impetus and help guide the vision of Bethel Baptist Church so that so much could be done. Not only with regards to Bethel community and, but as it relates to the Bethel Baptist Association, because, we have my brothers and sisters, many of them are hearing me throughout the Bahamas, who are churches who are part of the Bethel Baptist Association. And then also the leadership, the congregation of Bethel, we are now impacting practically, the world through the Progressive National Baptist Convention. Indeed, so I say, I take my hat off, Mike, and I say kudos to the membership of Bethel for their support, for their expertise, for their many and varied contributions to help to make all of these magnanimous feats possible.
Yeah. I appreciate that. And of course, I want to round it out by letting us hear from the most senior man in the room, because he is one now in charge of the Senior Saints. And certainly I know that there's a whole lot of stuff that you have gotten your people all worked up and ready for in this upcoming anniversary celebration on Sunday. It starts at 10 o'clock in the morning. It's just that one big service, right?
10
o'clock in the morning, and it's going to be live on ZNS, and everybody's going to be listening to it, and the senior saints will be there. And so, Howard Miller, when you look at what's happening here you are, another celebration, another year.
Thank you, Brother Steve. My brothers and sisters of Bethel Senior Saints, we are looking forward to seeing all of you there. Finally, arrayed in your white, well-dressed to be showcased on television on Sunday at 9:30. We're looking forward to seeing all of you there. And we are expecting a good time this Sunday as we celebrate 227 years since Bethel has been around in the Caribbean and particularly in the Bahamas.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Howard Miller, I want to thank you very much. I want to thank you too, Reverend A. DeWitt Hutchison, and for the fine job that you continue to do. Continue to do that, my friend. We're proud of you. Those of us who played a little basketball together, even though I was the big fellow who was dunking and all that, and you all had to just go get the ball when I dunk. I appreciate you very much.
Steve.
And of course, I appreciate you too, brother Ishmael Lightburn. And we're looking forward to your voice. Good music. I expect that you're going to put a solo out there on Sunday. I don't want to pick what the program is going to be, but I just expect that we could have a good. Pastor Stewart, you hear me, right? I just want to make sure that we can have a nice solo from Brother Ish.
You're correct. Brother Ish, there's no one like Brother Ish. Brother Ish is one of a kind.
No question. Well, listen, I want to thank him, Brother Ish, and I also want to thank you too, Pastor Stewart. And we're hoping that it's going to be a grand occasion. And we're telling everybody to go and be a part of it, because this is what you want to do. You want to know what the history is. You want to know when you pass Meeting Street, that you must pass Meeting Street and the meeting house with reverence, because they've come a mighty long way and they're still here. And it's continuous service down through the years. And I expect it's going to be never ending. That's just the way it is. And I want to thank you very much all for coming to the show today.
Thank you
and sharing with us.
Thank you, Steve. God bless you. Thank you, my brother.
So what we're going to do, we're going to run away to this big celebration that's coming up with the commercial as we run to the break. And when we come back, there's more to come. This evening here, talking about what is going on in the country. And there's another part of the church. There's the financial stuff that's happening now that is happening not from Bethel Baptist. I'm talking about the moves that are now being made, and I see where the Bahamas Christian Council has decided that they're going to say, hold on now, enough is enough, don't cross the line, because you're talking about we money, and you're going in another area that we ain't so sure you should be going in. This is with the Registrar General asking for these NGOs and whatnot to be signing up and saying what they're making. We're going to talk about that in a minute when we come back here. As we run to the break here, and we thank Bethel Baptist Church. Go to church on Sunday, because that's the place to go. Bethel, the Mother Church on Meeting Street. After these words then. Bethel Baptist Church, the Mother Church on Meeting Street, presents its annual anniversary service. 227 years anniversary service. The place, Bethel Baptist Church, Meeting Street. The date, July 30th, 2017. The time, 10 a.m. It's a live television broadcast on cable 211. Your speaker for the day, Reverend Dr. Timothy Stewart. He's the pastor of Bethel Baptist Church, and it's going to be a whole lot of fun and a whole lot of excitement as they present their 227th anniversary service. The theme this time around, In Pursuit of Greatness, taken from Luke 22:24 through 30. Special music and special performances by Bethel's Choir, Bethel's Praise Team, and Bethel's Dancers. All are invited to attend this Sunday, the 30th of July. Bethel Baptist Church, 227th anniversary service. You ought to be there.
Transforming institutional investing, empowering Bahamians to save and invest, growing its business to create a strong and stable investment environment for generations to come. That's what CFAL has accomplished in its first 20 years. And that's what Bahamians can expect in the years to come. For at CFAL, we believe our past is a foundation for an even greater future. Call us today or visit cfal.com and seize your future.
It's summer, and Commonwealth Bank wants to know, are you set? Get set for all your summer expenses with a personal loan from Commonwealth Bank. Get cash for summer travel, back to school, whatever you need, with fast approval and great service. Plus, there are weekly cash prizes and a grand prize of $5,000. Get a MasterCard too for everyday expenses. So, get set, get ready, and get over to Commonwealth Bank today.
This Thursday, Frankie Gone Bananas Arawaki invites you to wind down. An evening of wine and jazz, appetizer specials, and signature cocktails, conky conk fritters, sliders, conk tacos, and a whole lot more. The place to be is Arawaki, Frankie Gone Bananas, Thursday, the 27th day of July, from 6 until 9 o'clock at night. The place you want to be, Frankie Gone Bananas. It's on Arawaki, and they're having a wind down. It's all good, and you ought to be there and wind down.
If it moves, chances are Advantage Insurance can insure it. We offer a variety of coverage options for cars, SUVs, trucks, scooters, boats, and more. Our comprehensive auto insurance policy covers loss or damage due to collision, theft, fire, flood, or hurricane. Third-party coverage is also available. Call Advantage Insurance at 356-0285 or visit us on Collins Avenue today. Advantage Insurance, celebrating 20 years.
The Show Bistro, Nassau Street, is serving up a delightful food fair this Independence. Be sure to make it a special occasion during the entire month of July and feast like a proud Bahamian at the show. Boiled and stewed grouper, served with piping hot yellow grits and Johnny cake, seasoned to perfection. Signature stewed cow, succulent and delicious, as only the show can do it. The Show Bistro, serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner with an Independence flair for the entire month of July. Come dine in with us and enjoy the good times. The Show Bistro, open every day, including holidays, from 7 a.m. until. Serving seafood and Bahamian delights galore all day, only at the show. Nassau Street. Takeout orders also available. Telephone 323-4400.
Why I'm bursting with pride.
It's hurricane season, and we at the Water and Sewage Corporation want you and your water to be safe if a storm heads our way. During a hurricane, heavy rain combined with storm surges can cause an underground water well to become contaminated and unsuitable for use.
The Water and Sewage Corporation's offer of 50% off sign-up services is back for residents in New Providence and the Family Islands. Offer valid for a limited time only. Some restrictions may apply. Sign up today. The Water and Sewage Corporation. Committed to growth, committed to quality.
Executive Printers. We're professionals. At Executive Printers, we do not participate in trash talk. We concern ourselves with the accuracy and security of your laser check. That is why we put 15 securities on your laser checks. This is not trash. This is fact. It makes fraud almost impossible. Call us today at Executive Printers at 393-5011 or email us at sales@epbahamas.com. That's sales@epbahamas.com. Executive Printers. Laser checks. We do them right.
Ah, it tastes so good. Fresh, clear, ultra pure. Available at your neighborhood depot and nearest store. Echo Water, premium distilled. Don't be surprised. It comes in just your size. 20 ounces, 1 and 5 gallons, and 1.5 liters. Echo Water, just what the body needs.
Listen up, Bahamas. Grow green to breathe clean. And Rocky Farms Nursery is the best place to start. They are your everything you are looking for store. New and improved. Bigger and better with varieties gone to bed. Soils, poinsettias, indoor and outdoor plants, fertilizers of every type, swordgrass, and the like. It's all at Rocky Farms Nursery on Seabreeze Lane. Go visit them today and behold. Call them at 324-1239. Fax them at 364-8113 or send them an email at rockyfarms@patelnet.bs. Rocky Farms Nursery.
You have some people who claim that they want a free market, they want the economy to spread, they want our entrepreneurial spirit to rise and to open. But then on the other hand, you have people who have no intention of this happening and are very invested in things remaining the same as it always was. That's what we have to fight against right now. God wants a partnership with this government. They just have to be willing.
We all have certain political preferences, but that has never stopped me from embracing every opportunity to give national service.
Hey, let's get away!
Welcome back to Hard Copy in this second hour. And as we promised you in this second hour today, we're going to take a look at some of the things that has been provoked and sparked as a result of the government issuing out a number of, I suppose, notices that were in the papers earlier this week about what's expected from those non-profit organizations. And a lot of churches fall under the non-profit organizations. And as a result of that, there are people who are now responding and saying that, this is not what they had been anticipating or expecting. Of course, we're in a time of newness, eh? There is a new prime minister, the Honorable Hubert Alexander Minnis. There's also a new opposition leader, Mr. Brave Davis. There's also a new chief in town from the Bahamas Christian Council. His name is Dalton Fernando. He is the new president of the Bahamas Christian Council. And so we're in a dispensation of new people with new beginnings and doing new things in a new Bahamas. We hope that will become wonderful and prosperous in the years going forward. But of course, one of the major things here is that some things, because we have new people, there are some new things that are now happening from an area of the Attorney General's office, which the Registrar General's office fall under. And they're not so happy with the new things that are now being sought after to make sure that everybody pays their full weight because the country broke. At least that's what they've told us. I believe that we believe it. The country is broke. They've not been able to repeal that because we need the money. They've not been able to reduce things on that. The government has not, because we need the money. And so I believe that Bahamians are grappling with that and beginning to understand that we are in a bad place. And so all the powers that be are trying their best, I believe, to sort things out and to make it work and to make everybody as happy as they can. But you can make everyone happy. But this thing has really put a little kind of spike in the situation for the Bahamas Christian Council and the many churches who have been doing a tremendous job, for the most part, in our country to feed and to take care of people, as you've heard from Timothy Stewart and those just now from Bethel Baptist. But all of them have come under scrutiny because some are suggesting, when I say some, I'm talking about those who are in the threshold of government, the government agencies, they are believing that they need to have better accounting and more transparency about what happens in the goings on of the church when it comes to monies. In fact, somebody sent me a text, I think it was yesterday, that talked about the fact that the reason why the government is seeking now to ask these nonprofit organizations and trying to regulate these nonprofit organizations, and they did this by way of government announcements in the Gazette papers this week, is because, this person told me, that a lot of them have been doing things that have not been in the best interest of country because they are supposedly acting as banks, one person said. I don't know that this cannot be substantiated, but this is what a hierarchy person told me from the church, that a lot of them have been doing things that some people are suspicious that they may have been acting as banks and that kind of stuff, or banking up so much money that there's no one giving an account for what they're doing. And so this new proclamation that has gone out is requiring all those nonprofit organizations, many of them churches, as I said, to come under the proper regulations. And so they've given them 14 days to comply with making sure that they make their financial statements and the rest of it that they're interested in available. This is by order of the order by the Registrar General that falls under the Office of Attorney General. So what has happened is that the Christian Council has decided that maybe the government has crossed the line on asking for these financial records. There are some people who believe that they ought to ask for financial records because they're asking every Bahamian across the board to pay their taxes, and they're looking for ways and means to grow the revenue in our country by talking about real property tax and all kinds of things that many Bahamians have not really paid. There are lots of Bahamians who are delinquent in such an area, and the government, knowing that they must satisfy these agencies like Moody's and Standard & Poor's, they're trying to pick up as much monies as they can. So we, the Bahamian people, are going to have to pay the bills. And so there's no slash in taxes. In fact, they are becoming more, I suppose, engaged in making sure that you pay taxes. So for those of us who had not been perhaps paying things like real property tax and the rest of it, we're going to have to come and cough up some money. That's just the way it is. But back to this situation with the Bahamas Christian Council. Here's what the president said today in the papers. President Dalton Fernandez said, "The government has crossed the line by demanding that churches produce their financial records within 14 days. And they have 14 days to comply with nonprofit organizations' regulations." Bishop Fernando, who's just taken over as Christian Council president, is a dynamic man of God and has a very successful church and has been doing a tremendous job since he's been the president of the Christian Council. And I believe that when he spoke for many of them who are concerned about this seemingly sudden shift in policy or sudden shift in what is being required now, regulations, if you will. But I'm understanding that this has always been around, but it has never really been enforced, and there's never really been any public notices by way of Government Gazette that people should comply. So Bishop Fernandez said that other mechanisms already exist that provide oversight of church finances. He says he does not get why it is that the government needs to see the financial records of churches that do not accept money from the state. In other words, they are by themselves, they are not obligated in his way of thinking. Well, he's asking the question, are we obligated as churches when we don't accept anything from the church, from the state? And so he's called on the Registrar General's Department to extend at least the deadline for compliance with the regulations. And he says if it fails to do so, he says he guessed that they would have a wonderful prison ministry. He said he's very, very humorous. He's a nice guy. He says we would have a very wonderful prison ministry because I do believe there are a lot of pastors who are willing to make this stand with me. Now, I don't believe that he's talking fool. I think that he's on the money, to give the pun, because there are many pastors who have expressed concern about it. And maybe what this needs is more explanation since it's like a first time that they're doing it so publicly, that maybe people need to be engaged in the conversation, and not just by proclamation that this is what we're doing, but people need to be engaged in conversation to say, what do you think about this? A discussion of sorts, you see? And this is what Fernando is saying. He's saying, really the truth is, it seems as if the government has crossed the line. The Registrar General Department in their press statement says it's all about enhancing regulatory oversight of the nonprofit sector, though it calls for financial records of NPOs, nonprofit organizations. And the department has said in the newspapers that its review of NPOs is important to ensure that it's in compliance with the country's international obligations, preventing the potential use of nonprofit organizations in the Bahamas as vehicles for international criminal activity, and protecting our financial industry, which is vital to our national development. What they're saying that, that these guys may be funded by terrorists. That is what the bottom line is. Now, it sounds far-fetched, but there's bad money everywhere, and so bad money could have gotten there, and I suppose they want to know where the money coming from. And they may have said international obligations because the entire world wants to make sure that there's no terrorist cell in the Bahamas or any place else, and that we are not a conduit for these cells or these groups to penetrate and to put some monies here in the church, or put some monies in this bank, or put some monies in this lottery company, things like that. And so they're saying that they are wanting to make sure that people are compliant. And so that's why they sent out their government notices that you must become compliant within 14 days. You must be a part of this new regulation, if that's what we can call it new. And it says that, nonprofit organizations fall in that category, because could you imagine a fella says that he wants to give a church $300 million? Hello. This is just far-fetched, I know. It's hypothetical, but I'm just saying it could happen. And the churches has always been a safe haven. The churches have been a safe haven for people who are on the run, as far as even people who may be wanted by other jurisdictions. And they may come here under the auspices that they're, or the disguise that they want to have, political, asylum. And then, of course, there are churches in the Bahamas that we know of who, in fact, have always been the place where refugees have come to. They've run to it. There are churches who allow for them to be here. And we have a law here in the Bahamas that really states that, if there's a person who is like, let's say, an illegal alien in our country, that's off limits to the police. Did you know that? You can't go in the church and arrest anybody. It's off limits to the police. It's off limits like the hospital is. If somebody goes there for care in the area of illegal migration, you can't go and fool with them. It's off limits. This is what they have done. So I suppose the thinking is that just how these areas can be off limits to churches, other areas can be off limits, or just like how these areas like the hospital and all that, and the churches can be off limits because of what they're dealing with. It is not a far-fetched idea to believe that some foreign organization who have ultra-virus intent can come and put some monies in the church and say, hold that. So they say, look, we want to know. That's what the churches, that's what the government is saying. We want to know. Now, I don't know if this is a new thing by the new government, or if this is just something that was passed over from the previous government, because, governments are continuous. And as a result of that, this may be something that the previous government had planned to do, and it's been implemented on a timetable, just as if, because no one is going to stop the show because the government changed. So it may need a little explanation from the new administrators of our government to the churches, because you don't want to mess around with the churches, not only from a political support point of view, but especially since the Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Hubert Minnis, has reached out to the church and said in his speech from the throne, you remember, he says, look, we want to work hand in hand with the church. We want the church to help us do this and do that and the next thing, because we are depending upon them for a successful country. So I don't suppose that he'll just go and just arbitrarily just do something without, having a sit-down meeting with them. But then again, the proof was in the pudding. We've seen it in the papers. In fact, it was raised on this show about last week? It was Monday? Last week sometime. And Paul Moss, it was last week, Thursday, I think it was. And Paul Moss was a special guest on the show at the time. And he's the one, because he's a lawyer, he saw it, and he has a lot of clients, he said, that who were, in fact, impacted by this, and he raised it. And at the time, we had a good conversation about it, and it didn't seem to be so clear. But now that Delton Fernandez has gotten a good look at it, an overview of it, and he has made his statements, it is obvious that non-profit organizations, that includes churches, are under the scrutiny of the state to say, we want to make sure that you guys are properly regulated and there's serious transparency and accountability. Now, I want to ask the public, what do you think about that, first and foremost, because you're a part of the church, you're a member of some church, and this is for all churches. This is not picky, choosy. This is the whole 9 yards, just about 400 plus more. Thousands, I understand, are part of these government notices that have been executed letters of make sure that you guys comply. And I suppose Delton Fernandez is taking the lead on making sure that something is said on behalf of the many churches. And I do believe that he does in fact have the support of the men, the pastors, who he believes will stand with him, as he said. He says he believes that, I believe there are lots of pastors who are willing to make this stand with me. That give us more time, let us collect our thoughts, and then let us get to you and see what we can say and how these things can be done. But don't come rushing up on us, my words, not his words. Don't come rushing up on us and breathing down our necks, saying this is what the deal is. Because we've always enjoyed a wonderful, harmonious relationship with governments of the Bahamas. This was Paul Moss. I want to play this for you. Get you involved. You can call me at 325-023516. 325-0242-43, 325-0252-53. No church has been left out of this mix. All Anam, so the people from Andrews say, all Anam are part of this mix. So don't think that, that's them. No. All Anam. That is what is being now required by the Registrar General of the Bahamas. Okay? 325-023516. You can call me and text me at 376-9234 on my WhatsApp, or my text line 376-9234. Now, this is Paul Moss bringing it up with me, and this is how that conversation went.
Certainly, I've never seen this before, but this notice came out today from the Registrar General's office under the auspices of the Attorney General, directing all nonprofit companies to do a number of things, among which is to produce financial statements on the activities of their entity. And we know that churches generally don't do that, and other private entities, nonprofits, don't do that either. But this is threatening them with $10,000 fines and imprisonment.
Is that right?
And everything. Yes, this is what it's doing. And when you read it, you can tell that it has no basis in law. This is the Attorney General has got it wrong, but I see that his signature is not on this. This is the Registrar of the Department of Registration. They must have not gotten the advice of the Attorney General, because I can't see the Attorney General sending out such a circular. You're saying to people that you have to produce financials when these are private entities. Private companies do not have to produce anything to anybody. And this is what they're saying, that this regulation that they now have is mandating it. And when you read the regulation, what is very curious is that This regulation came into force in 2014.
Yeah.
And it says that the registrar could ask for financial statements. However, he or she may only do so if they suspect that the nonprofit is financing terrorism.
Is that right?
That's correct.
Now, that was the conversation on Thursday past about this whole matter. We raised it, and it just went over everybody's head because, of course, it was fresh and new. It was the first day in the papers, and people may not have taken it seriously at the time. But could you imagine that there are our people there who are concerned that terrorism may have sneaked into the church by way of financial contributions? That's what it amounts to. And that's why I said to Paul, are you serious? Are you certain about that? And of course, he's a lawyer, as I said. He was so certain about it that he decided that he better just cue me in more and just read the act. And so there's an act from the Registrar General, from the Attorney General on this whole particular matter. And let me indulge Paul to read that act just for you.
The act that I'm reading from is I want to give you the full name. It's the Companies Nonprofit Organizations Regulations 2014. And if you go to section 14, section 13, it really speaks to when the registrar may request such financial statement. And I'll just read 13 subparagraph 2. The registrar may give notice under paragraph 1 only where it reasonably requires the record specified in the notice to assess the extent, if any, to which the registered nonprofit organization is being used to assist terrorist financing. That's the only basis in which they can
actually act. That's, you see that? To assist in terrorist financing. So what is it? What is it that we're suspicious of? And is it legit? And does it carry through? Or is Big Brother a little nosy and want to know what these churches are making? I mean, you've got to ask yourself that question. It's a logical thing to ask. Again, I do say that I believe that the people who are putting this out, and is on behalf of the government of the Bahamas, are genuinely trying to follow the rules and regulations of international organizations who believe that everybody, especially in the Bahamas, doing something funny and could be funded by terrorism or terrorists. So they are perhaps innocently, the Registrar General's office and the Attorney General's office are perhaps innocently trying to go about satisfying international criteria. But they may have provoked churches in the Bahamas in a very interesting way because, as you heard Dalton Fernandez say, the president, he's saying, why are you coming around us? And we do not accept money from the state. They want to make sure you're accepting money from nobody else either, I suppose. And maybe that's why they are making the noise that they're making. Let's take some calls on the telephone line here this afternoon because it's quite interesting. Your church is involved somehow because of the fact that you go to church, and perhaps you have something to say. Hard copy, how you doing?
Good afternoon, Mr. McKinney. How you doing?
Very good, thanks.
You know, Mr. McKinney, when I think back over the many years that I spent inside the church that I grew up in, and I look at churches such as the Catholic Church, and I know, Mr. McKinney, you grew up in church as well, and sometimes when we talk about the church, it's so sacred that we think anything we say against the church or question the church, we feel like we are evil people, devilish people, and we committing a sin. But I look at the church now that I've gotten old in life as a business, just like any other business. And I know they do their good and their services to the community as well. But I think, why would they be so secretive about letting the general public, who are also members of the church, know their financial standing? Why shouldn't they pay taxes like any other business to the country? Why is everything so secret when we know, and you know, growing up, we've been told, or we don't even have no proof, that the Catholic Church itself is one of the richest organizations in the entire universe. They have a city within a city, and no government can fool with them in a place called the Vatican. money. They have gold that they took from Africa years ago down in banks in the bottom of the Vatican that nobody could touch and stuff like that. What's the need of all of this when you're supposed to be a child of God? Jesus walked around the face of the earth. He didn't even have a Cadillac. He rode on a donkey. And people used to take him and feed him. Why is it that religious leaders have to be so filthy rich? Why do they have to have private jets to fly around?
You're talking about two different things. We're talking about churches' finances, and there are people who acquire wealth by doing a number of things. But wait a second.
But part of the wealth that they from the parishioners and people of the church. That's how it ends up in their hands.
Well,
I
listen.
give the guy $10 to take to God. He drop it in a bank account, Royal Bank or some other bank. As far as I know, he took it to God, but come to find out, he's signing checks on the doggone $10 that I gave him.
I hear you. I appreciate your calls,
I don't know if
Sparky.
it reached God or if it reached to him.
Yeah, I hear you. What I'm saying, we mustn't cross up these things because there are individuals who are pastors, who are very learned men, who have been able to make monies on books that they write, on different seminars that they go and they teach, and they do that. And that's outside of the scope of what they're doing in their organization of a church body. Let's get that straight. And so there may be people who would have accumulated a lot of great wealth by writing books, by making speaking engagements, by doing business travel and doing a number of things, because there are many who do that. And you can't say, well, this fella should not do that because he is within his right to do so, even as a pastor. But his church, there are board of governors in those churches that see to it. They're trustees. They are run like organizations, and they are able to give account to their membership, and they do so. Most of them do so. Yes, there's one or two of individuals who may be considered rogue pastors or rogue reverend men or that kind of thing, if you want to say that. But I know many of them who, in fact, write books, who own many major construction businesses. They are builders. They do other things. They don't just sit there and be pastors, you know. And sometimes the churches cannot even afford to pay their pastors, and so they've got to go and work and make a living. Of course, there are some who believe, and there's a perception that churches just tell you, come bring some money and give the church a donation, and that's it. And that's what they live off. That's really a misconception in many cases, because you know how Bahamians go. It don't go so when those church organizations decide that we want accountability, and this is what we have, and this is what you did, and this is what you're supposed to be paid. And sometimes they make pittance. So many of them have got to go and do other functions to make a dollar. There are many pastors right now today in our country, in the Bahamas, who in fact are doing things like serious construction or engineering as a part of their career. But they are pastoring on Sunday. And if you check many of them, and I can tell you this is a fact, because we've investigated this time and time again, many of them don't even take a salary. You need to know that. But there is a perception, I'm well aware, there is a perception that all these fellas them doing is hustling money, living off the people, like Sparky pretty much tried to say just now. And there are people who get ticked off about it. But there's another side. It's a church organization. And this, what the government is doing there, they're saying that, look, this is what, you are a non-profit organization. See, that's the key. You're a non-profit organization. But we want to know what you're doing. So there's a suspicion. You have to call it what it is. There's a suspicion by Big Brother, because of international interventions, who believe that we in the Bahamas, like many places in the Caribbean, are doing fool. Like we are still pirates of the Caribbean, and perhaps they're correct in that episode in many other areas. But the church is someplace that people go as a nonprofit organization, and they try to make ends meet to do the work that they're doing. You can't do these things without monies. Money is money answereth all things. That's in the Bible too. So you need things to create the programs. For instance, there are many churches who have these feeding ministries. There are many churches who sponsor many of the young people who go to school. There are many things that the church must find ways and means to fund. The church was all we ever had in the Bahamas. We never had no government. We had the church. Come now. Let's reason together. We never really had no government that we say, this my government, they can take care of everything. No, we had the church. And the Catholic Church was continues to be a great organization, if I can say a good word for them, who in fact educated most of us basically for free. Can we ever pay them back? The monks, the Benedictine monks, and can we? Seriously? We are the beneficiaries of many things that they have done, and they did it themselves. There was no government giving them money. Come now, are you a recipient of a Catholic education? See, I like to be fair and honest about these things, and I have got my own issues with the church, and I believe when the church steps on the line on moral grounds, that's where I can get, really impactful and say what I have to say, and I've done that on occasion. But I have to be real that, this is a very interesting scenario that's happening now within the church. And it is a part of, I suppose, a taxation. It's a part, certainly, of a suspicion. It's a part of, making sure that they pay their fair share if there's anything to do. And it's also a part of making sure that taxes can be raised properly in this country. Now, I believe that all of them, everybody, every organization should pay their fair share of whatever it is that's being required. That's only fair. That's only fair. But this is a unique circumstance, and I think that's why the president, Delton Fernandez, has raised it. And he's saying, he didn't say, we ain't going to pay, we ain't doing this, we ain't going to let y'all see no books. He didn't say that. He says, look, 14 days to comply is like you've just dropped this on us. You've just buttered us in a bucket of ice water. Say, come up breathing and swimming and feel good about yourself. You shivering and cold. That's what he's saying. So maybe they will comply. Maybe they will, in fact, get some more time, extend it. We'll see. Let's take another call. Hard copy, sorry, wrong line. Hard copy, how are you?
Hey, good evening, Mr. McKinney.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, reconciler here. I was waiting for you to come up with this topic because I know you had to deal with it because it's a very serious matter here.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard the news this morning, and I heard none other than the Honorable Brent Simonet speaking to this. And he was talking about terrorism. You heard that, Pete?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was wondering why are they talking about terrorism in churches, non-profit NGOs, unless they have some kind of evidence. Now, I like what you did a while ago when you let Paul Moss, say what he say about the law and what the law had to say about these things. And I believe that, Paul was right on it. He said the only way they can do that if they have some proof that terrorism is going on.
Yeah.
Now, this raises another issue, Brother McKinney.
What is that?
The issue, the government, when they got the Minister of Finance, Mr. Tankers, got in the House of Assembly and talked about so much detail about the economy, and Moody's and them came, breathing down our neck. And now this raised the issue with the international bodies. Say the government talking about terrorism, they're going to come and say, well, terrorism in the Bahamas, in the churches. You understand what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I believe the government is operating like a bunch of amateurs. They need some guidance on how to go about things. And I wonder what are their objectives and motives. Because you have a lot of smart people there. And when you see smart people doing foolish things, you must get what they up to, Brother McKinney. So I say, Bishop Delton Fernandez raised a very good point when he said what he said today about the churches. He didn't, like you said, didn't tell them not to pay, but he said we need more time. In other words, apparently he draw a line in the sand.
Yeah.
And I do support that. So I say to the government, do not. Now I have some problems, some issues with the way some of these churches operate, and I believe some things happened before in the past with regard to illegal immigration. But I don't think there's no terrorism in no church in the Bahamas or NGO. What I believe the government got to do, you talk about supporting terrorism, go to them banks with taking in these monies, offshore private banks, taking in all this money from it's been proven that it did happen in the past. You remember?
Yes, I remember.
You need to check out.
Yeah.
Leave these churches alone. Since the FNM came into power, all they doing is coming at the small man, the big billionaires and multi-billionaires coming in the conglomerates having a free pass.
I see.
Those who should be paying income taxes, that's what he should have done, and getting real money from them, and we already had some relief in our economy. They are bypassing them. They are supposedly, allegedly financial backers. That's why they're not addressing election finance reform. It's only a talk. But they coming at the small man. They coming at the scholarship again, with the schools and all that, which they promised people that they would give free scholarships. And the government is being hypocritical and heartless.
Okay.
I must say, I'll call it like it is, Brother McKinney. Have a good day.
I appreciate your call. I appreciate your contribution, as always. 325-023516. Is it unreasonable for the churches? Is it an unreasonable request for the Registrar General's office under the auspices of the Attorney General to make this statement that they would like to see the accounts and the financial records of all of the nonprofit organizations, including churches, and that they're doing it because there's some talk about what if they're being financed by terrorist organizations. This is the international talk. You need to know that. United Nations, the OAS, the International Monetary Fund, those kinds of institutions that have a great impact upon the world. They're monitoring everybody. And of course, these are some concerns that we do have. And so when you see that we ask that question, it is to get your feedback on what are your thoughts. I mean, is the church above board that they can't have their records looked at, or they can't comply with the regulations of what the state is now calling for? Is that what we're looking at? Is it that, as Reconciler says, that the small man is being targeted and the big boys get a free pass? Is that how we ought to look at this thing? Perhaps we ought to look at it from a point of view of balance and justice that is for everybody. But Delton Fernandez says, in pretty much his words, it's an overkill. I'll read that to you in a minute, but let me take some calls. Hard copy, how are you?
Hey, good evening, Steve. How you doing, man?
Very good, thanks.
You look very relaxed.
I tired, man.
You sure don't look tired. Anyhow, Steve, I think a couple of months ago, Leslie Miller and his partner, and I called the show pertaining to the same matter.
Yeah.
And I was asked if I have any proof.
I remember that. I remember that clearly.
Especially with the proof.
Mm-hmm.
Steve, what the government is doing is necessary. Why, I will not say over the air, but what they're doing is necessary.
I see.
Believe me when I tell you, Steve, it is necessary.
Wow.
People have a problem with changes, but this is very, very, very necessary, Steve.
Mm-hmm. I suppose you'll whisper that to me when I see you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I would appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you kindly. Yeah, I do remember him calling me some time ago about it, and he didn't elaborate, and I was, what are you talking about? And he's still not elaborating, but he obviously knows some things as to why this may have been something to spark. As I told you, somebody texted me this week talking about the fact that there are people who have, been taking monies from organizations outside of this jurisdiction and putting it into our banks. I got those text messages. Kid you not. And I wondered about, this was right after we raised this thing on this show about the requirements now by the Registrar General. And he says, look, this is what is happening. And there are many who he said are guilty of this. He didn't call any names to me, and I'm not interested in them, but that's a matter for the authorities to deal with if that's the case. But it perhaps gives some kind of relevance to this theory and this suspicion that churches and other organizations, nonprofit, can be funded by international terrorist groups and organizations. And we're part of the global village, so we can't pretend as if we are, separate and apart and, sheltered from this kind of a thing, because them fellas, they'll penetrate anything. They'll penetrate our country tonight and get a couple of recruits to be a part of Al Qaeda and all kinds of stuff. You know that. God forbid, but you know that. So there's a real thing going on here about what's to be understood by this whole matter. Hard copy, how are you? Hard copy, you there? Good afternoon. Okay, I don't hear anybody there. Hard copy, how are you?
Hi, Steve. How you doing, man?
Very good, thanks.
That's good. Yeah, Steve, you surprised that the church is being targeted now?
If I'm surprised?
Yeah.
Not really, but I am concerned that I see the things that I'm reading these days.
You're concerned?
Yeah, I'm concerned about it. I'm concerned that they are concerned, that I know that the mandate has been in this dispensation under the new government that they want to do a number of things to work harmoniously with churches in the Bahamas. In fact, the appeal went out from the speech from the throne talking about what they want to do and how they want to do certain things to...
Well, in essence, the government wants to make a pact with the church and bypass the people, the Bahamian citizens. Because when we look at the Christian Council, the Christian Council is a twofold council. It started as the Bahamian Christian Council, which now today is the Bahamian Christian Council and the Haitian Christian Council. Like 20 years ago, there were some 3,000 odd churches in the Bahamas.
Mm-hmm.
Out of that body, 20 years ago, 600 were Haitian churches. All right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we're looking at sanctuaries and places where persons can go and hide, where the law can't go to check on anything, in America, there's no sanctuary basically in America other than California who's trying to fight it and one other state, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is
I'm
that,
aware.
guess what? The terrorists, that's where they hide. That's where they hide their drugs, their guns, their illegal migrants, okay? And in the Bahamas, it's a shame because how could the Christian Council...
So you think that's what is happening here, that we're hiding
Mr. McKinney,
illegals, we're hiding guns, we're hiding finances? That's what you think is happening here?
everything is hidden in the church, sir. If you go in the church, I'll bet you'll find drugs, guns, everything, because they know the authorities can't go in there.
I see.
We need to change that.
Hmm.
And guess what? If we don't do that sooner than later, we'll see the consequences, because guess what? Those people who talk in the Creole, they only here for their convenience. They're not Christians. They look at us as fools, okay? And they're using this church thing, like we just go to church 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Them church buses on the road all night, all day, going to construction sites all over the place, okay?
I hear you.
And church never being like that. But they, you know what? They just using us, and they call us fools. And you know what? We will be fooled, and then if we let them continue to live how they live.
So your bottom line is that the state is absolutely spot on in pursuing these nonprofit organizations, including churches, to find out what's happening with finances.
They're hiding all kind of stuff.
I see. I appreciate it.
Talking about all kind of stuff, because you know what? If you can't go someplace like the state authorities can't go. Hello?
I'm listening.
Yeah. If the authorities can't go in to do their search, or even like in the church or any institution as such, right? They will. If those people, they're criminals, man. They come here illegal. You think their intentions are good? America's taking all of the gang out, the Zopan gang, and all of them are just like gangs. So to seek silence.
Okay.
Even the children and all of them, all them working together.
I hear you. I appreciate your call. I hear what you're saying. I hear you. I've weighed on the table of consideration by the Bahamian public or in the Bahamian public to see what they say. Hard copy, how you doing?
Steve?
Yes, sir.
You see, I'm not going to be a part of any government who's going to come across as if they're trying to persecute the church.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm not sure in this case it's a persecution against the church. It's transparency. See, the church can't preach transparency, honesty, integrity, and then when this come around, they have a problem.
Okay.
However, on the other hand, the government has to also remember there's certain information that the church is privy to that they don't want to be taxed for. Have a good day.
Understood. Yeah, this is loaded. You go on and touch that, and it's explosive. Yeah. So what did the Christian Council's president say, Bishop Fernanda, Delton Fernanda? He says it's an overkill. He says the church wants to work with the state. He says the church has worked with the state, but the church will not will not allow the state to dictate what the church will do. He said, in this case, it's clearly crossing the line. Usually, he says, the state is able to ask for financial records when it takes state funds. If you do not take state funds, I don't see how the state should be asking for financial records of the church. So this debate is something that's quite interesting. And the journalist who wrote this story, I think this is Rashad Rowe from the Tribune, he purportedly and reportedly asked if churches have maintained financial records up to the last 5 years, as regulations require. And he says that Bishop Fernandez says, he guarantees that the church has been keeping their records over the last 5 years. He says, all of us have to do it for our banks. He said, if you have an account at any bank and you are any kind of organization, at the end of the year, you must produce your financials. So there are other tools, is what he's saying. It's very suspicious, is what he's saying. We have a whole regulatory board that investigate finances. Why is the eye so scrutinizing the church that you really, really need to know what's happening in the church? What for, is what he's saying. He says, as pastors, if I were to have a special service and collect an offering, and you give me an offering and I deposit it, and it's over a certain amount, I will get a call. Not only will I get a call, but there will be an investigation into where these finances come from. Isn't this an overkill? He asks. And so his whole thing is that the government needs to back, reconsider, and take a look-see at what they're really doing, how they're proceeding. But the truth be told, this is far beyond the government of the Bahamas, because this is obviously something that came down from on high. And I don't mean from the Lord. Came down from on high in the secular world of finances, where those who want to really run countries, the pseudo-intellectuals, they are saying, look, check your people over there, make sure they ain't collecting no money from these terrorists, make sure this, make sure that, make sure the next thing, make sure, cross your T's and dot your I's and all that, and make sure, because we coming for you if in fact we find out otherwise. And so the Bahamas, being as scary as we are, has decided that we're going to comply right away. Yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, boss. And what's happening is that all the churches, even though we have been in a harmonious relationship with them, we have now irritated many of them. When I say we, I'm talking collectively, we as a government, we as a people. And they have a problem with it. So I say the best thing to do is to sit down as men and thrash it out and come to some kind of understanding and be real with the church. Tell the church right off the top, this is what they're saying to us. And this is what we are trying to avoid. Sometimes it's best to sit and talk in a grouping with the churches or with these organizations, and then they'd know. But all kinds of things have been happening in our country in recent times. You talk about immigration matters and matters of migration. You got to look at big money business that comes into our country and undercut and undermine and influence our political system. That's a fact. All these monies that were a part of the elections campaign that just passed, this is phenomenal. Somebody ought to be looking at that, but I don't hear anybody talking about electoral reform along those lines, because maybe we don't care that we get money from here, there, and everywhere, and when we win, we have to pay the piper. Maybe we don't care about that. It's an image. It's an image of corruption that we have, And that's one of the reasons why there are international groupings that believe that you better check the Bahamas first, because anything could be happening over there. Now, you may not like me saying that. I don't like even saying it, but I know it's the reality. I'm in the real world. I'm a part of the world where I know what happens with these international organizations. I can only tell you the truth. That's what's happening, my friends. And so while Delton Fernanda is such a great guy and very likable, very knowledgeable, and very decent, he's a very decent person. One of the best presidents that we've had in a while. He's very decent. He's a mover and shaker. He can make things happen. He's looking to make things happen. I don't think that he would buck and go against the government because he feels like it. He's standing his ground on a particular point, and all it perhaps needs is a little clarity. Maybe they ought to just clear it up and say, okay, this is what we're trying to do, my friend. Have no fear. This is what the deal is. And I'm sure that he'd be willing to be a party that will cooperate totally. But for the time being, it's up in the air. Let me just read some of my text messages here because I've gotten many of them today. My goodness, many of them. Here's one that says this. I would agree with any church that choose not to provide private financial records to any government. This is further an erosion of freedoms and privacy rights. If this is enacted, which private citizen is or business is next? Well, it's a requirement. It's already enacted. It's a requirement that they're saying that this is what we want you to do. This person says, oh boy, this is a long text. The advantages and disadvantages of this exercise of the list being provided for auditing nonprofit organizations and churches. We understand the list was necessary for compiling because the government will be giving some benefits to nonprofit organizations, allegedly. This nonprofit list is good for society and country because it will show that some people pay tithes even though they are unemployed. He says that we understand the act was implemented by the PLP administration, but being put into practice now by the F&M administration. No big deal. But don't fool yourself, he says. The people tithes has contributed greatly to the wealth of these pastors. And over the years, the church has become a business generally. He says Miles Monroe did a lot for the world, but it's strange he has gone down. This is totally irrelevant. That part, my friend, let me say to you, is totally irrelevant. And is basically an insult to decent people. Anyway, this one says here on this text message that, Steve, it's a new day, a new era, new everything, the end of slackness and lawlessness. I'm glad this new administration is approaching everything that previous administration neglected to deal with. We just have to get used to abiding by the rules of law on all fronts. Keep it up, Dr. Minnis. Do not give in to your critics, is what this person advises. And another says, stop it, Steve. It's the F&M plan and not the PLP plan. Well, I only say what I know the government's are continuous. And I'm only telling you that based upon the fact that this announcement has come out at this particular time, this was a part of the regiment of rollouts of things that happens in continuous government. It doesn't matter who's in charge. It doesn't matter, as the previous text has said, that this is a PLP plan. I don't care whose plan it is, and I'm not making any big point about that. All I know is that it's happened under the Free National Movement Watch, but obviously this was something that was done previously. If you know how governments work, and that's why I can speak to this, then you would understand what I'm saying. But since you don't know, I say, cool down and listen. You may learn something. This person says, oh boy. Okay, let me go back up here. Thank you, my friend. I've got this message. Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. McKinney. Churches that don't have credit facilities are not required to provide their banks with their financial reports. Even those churches that do have credit facilities do not provide financial reports on a timely basis or at all.
At best, the quality of financials are not dissimilar from those from most commercial businesses. In that generally they are dated and unreliable. So I suppose this person is saying, don't come with that about you can give your statements to the banks, because he's saying most churches don't even have. If they don't have any credit facility, they don't have any financial records, is what he's saying. And another one says, this person says, all this is happening because of the defeat of the Credo for Gender. Oh, because of this thing for gender equality bills. They're putting pressure on us, is what this person says. Say all of this thing about the churches having to make sure that they provide their finances. He's saying that this is because of this gender equality bill that the church went against. He's saying that's what they're putting on us. He said they're putting pressure on us. He says, remember now, the church has headed up the No Vote campaign. Oh, don't forget the web are part of this too. Steve, that caller ain't lie, you know. All the legal safe houses and safe churches are painted blue and white. Check it out. Are you suggesting that the Church of the Nazarene, is that what it's called? The Haitian churches? Because they're the churches, I know he's talking about the Haitian churches because they're painted blue and white. East Street and all that. He said that these are sanctuaries for people who are, I suppose, in the country illegally. I wouldn't put that out there as fact. There's a suspicion about it. I've heard that many times before. There's a suspicion about it, but I can't say that that's a fact. Churches can produce account reports from a bookkeeper. It does not necessarily have to be from an audited firm or a bank, is what this person says. I hear you. Another one says, okay, I've read that before. So, you know, I've gotten many text messages that I've tried to read most of them. And it's quite interesting, this whole thing. This person says here by WhatsApp, he says, I hope the Christian Council would continue to respond immediately on other social problems and matters that affect this country at large, is what that person says. And yet another person says, good afternoon, Mr. McKinney. All the government doing is trying to rid this country of corruption. My husband is the pastor of a Baptist church, and he does not have a problem releasing the church's financial records. If the churches have nothing to hide, why do they not want to conform? Is what that lady asks. And this person says, no, that's not a part of my show today. I'm sorry. Hi, Steve. This person says, I smell a rat. I smell a rat, Steve. On what grounds does the government have a right to tell the church what to do with the tithes offering of the people? The churches are registered as a non-government organization, and they pay bills like everyone else, including VAT. The government wants to tax the church for more money and stick its greedy hand in the church's offerings. There is a separation of church and state in that the government cannot direct the church how to worship or to open their bank account to praying eyes of the state. The government needs to go after the wealthy who owes the government millions for non-payment of various bills, etc. I say all churches stand against this threat. Really? Don't they have anything better to do? Is what this lady said. So some strong stuff coming from the Bahamian public today. And Bahamians are speaking loud and clear on this matter. And this is very, very interesting. I tell you, we're going to have to pick this up again and you know, basically explore this and see what will become the end result of all this. Some churches are situated on government property and crown land, says this person. So what does that mean? How do they get that? Maybe they applied for it and the government gave it to them. So
I do take it that there are people who have an issue with the church. There are some people who, and I've heard from a couple of them today, they have issues with the church. And that's always the narrative from a couple of people who I recognize their voices. And I know that they have issues. I understand that. But the church is here to show love and mercy and kindness and compassion. And we need the church. I support all churches in the Bahamas. And that's why you hear me sometimes say, let's go to church on Sunday. Let's go to church whenever you want to go to church. If you want to go on Saturday, fine. Let's go to church. We must praise and worship God. We must do as best we can with what little that we have. It is a bad time in our country, and things are not that all that good. But we've got to work together. And I say, where brothers can gather together and console each other and try to help with the bigger picture, we must do that. We must seek to do that. And we must not seek to antagonize or to embarrass the church or the church to embarrass the state. We must do what we have to do until, the good Lord comes. We have to do the right thing. That's what I'm saying. And if the right thing is reporting, then give them the report. Because I don't believe any churches in the Bahamas are a part of any kind of nonsensical plot as far as terrorism is concerned. I don't believe so. I believe that some funny money's gone into the church, and that has always been the case. If you check the funny monies that gone into the church, you could start right with the Numbers Boys. They've made contributions to the church. No question about it. And I'm not saying that those monies that they made to the church were for any special favors. They just felt like giving the church some money. And that's the way it is. Do you ask everybody who comes to you and make a donation, where you get this from? This ain't no bad money, you ain't robbed nobody, You think the church has asked that? And the answer is no. That's the way it is. Now, we've got to be responsible to seek out and do things that are righteous. That's why this dispensation actually calls for a righteous government. That's what it calls for. Because we're in some rough times. We are in perilous times, but we don't seem to understand that. We are in perilous times, and we need good advice, and we need something good where they would say the old stalwarts of the church will say, well, your anchor hold. We need that kind of a thing now. We're in treacherous waters. The world ain't playing with us. The foreign invasion ain't playing with us. We are up for grabs, the Bahamas is, and everybody wants to be here. And just how everybody wants to be here, you think terrorists ain't want to be here? Don't fool yourself. Everybody wants to be here. For what it's worth. I leave it there to stay because there's a whole lot to say and we can talk forever and ever and ever. Now, I want to tell you that later this week, I'm taking a couple of days out because I'm very, very tired, as I said to somebody earlier. Need a little relaxation and a little bit of, some me time, that kind of thing, And so a couple of days off, I suppose you can handle that, right? We have shows for you. We have shows that we're going to be broadcasted tomorrow and on Friday. And on Monday, God willing, we'll return and we'll be fresh and ready to do some other stuff. And we've got some big guests coming in next week. So we look forward to those things, okay? And I want to just say that to you. So with that said, did I get everything in now today? Yes, I think. Steve, let's go home. Today's show's been brought to you by the folks who make it happen all the time. The Beauty Shack, Weekend 10 Cent, Seafowl, Mike of the Bahamas, The Show Bistro, Mount Tavis Inspiration, Super Value, All Bahamian Supermarkets, Rocky Farms Nursery, Water and Sewage Corporation, Ministry of Tourism, Echo Water, Commonwealth Bank, Cool Tech, the Echo Experts, on Tony Williams Darling Highway. Bahamian Brewery and Beverages, Superwash, open 24/7. Advantage Insurance and Brokers, 61 Collins Avenue. Rod's Electric Motors, Barge and Wolf Road. Executive Printers, Jerome Avenue. McKinney Media Group, for public relations, advertisements, and consultation. And Bethel Baptist Church, 227th anniversary service this coming Sunday at 10. God willing, we'll see you when we do next week Monday live, and of course tomorrow right here on the show. Hard copy rolls along at 5 o'clock, and I think we've got Cedric Bunnings, is that right? And we've also got
something from Glennis Anna. Yeah, and all that for you tomorrow, right here on the show. We'll see you. Good night. God bless.